today is the first week of Ordinary Time. If we'd been in church, we'd have changed our altar colours and all the colours to green, so that's what I've got on today. Today's Gospel as well from Matthew that we've read, it marks that shift from Easter time that we've been in to Ordinary Time. Now Matthew tells us how Jesus went around all the cities and villages proclaiming good news of the kingdom. Alongside this teaching, which takes place in synagogues, Jesus also continues his healing ministry. But he realises he needs help, so he calls people to him to help him, choosing 12 disciples just to do what he's been doing. He calls them his labourers, and they instructed to tell people that the kingdom of heaven is near, is amongst them, and that they are to heal the sick. What it's worth noticing here is that it's an unlikely bunch of the chosen people. First person to be named is Simon Peter, who we remember now denied Jesus. And the last disciple to be mentioned is Judas, who betrayed him. And then in the middle there's Matthew, who worked for the Romans. And then there's Simon, a zealot, who's committed to violent overthrow of those same Romans. I think it's quite reassuring, first of all, to recognise how inclusive and diverse this very first Christian community is. And these people, who Matthew calls apostles, they're the people that Jesus sends out. Well, they're a motley crew. Now, any other year, this sermon, which is the first in Ordinary Time, would be pretty straightforward for me to preach. It's almost certainly going to be about discipleship, which is about focusing on the ways in which we are sent out, in which we are going out into the world to live out the good news through our lives, to talk about God and to demonstrate in words of love and action. But with COVID-19, such a threat still upon us, and so many people amongst us shielding, and all of us restricted to how we can have any form of social contact or gathering, then a call to action, getting involved in mission for God, going out and doing the work of the good news, well, it kind of feels like, yeah, right. And yet, of course, mission, doing God's work, is still going on. After all, I'm broadcasting. Do you know, I didn't know this, but I found out that the literal meaning of broadcast comes from throwing a seed, like when a farmer casts their seed as broadly as possible, broadcasting. And we're doing that, aren't we? We're sharing this reflection each week, broad and wide, on YouTube, on our church website, on WhatsApp, on email, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. Just as the farmer, though, doesn't know quite where that seed is scattered, where that lands, we don't know who listens to these broadcasts. But we trust that God will enable and harvest from them, and maybe something good will come. Alongside this, many of you probably doing loads, I know you're telling me, loads of kind acts for your neighbours and friends. You've been in touch with each other as well, by phone and email, helping to ease the isolation we've all been experiencing. I wonder what those little seeds that you've been casting out might bring back. The Gospel from Matthew ended with that phrase which says, let's just see, it says, you received without payment, give without payment. Another translation of this is, freely you have received, freely give. These words are addressed to us too, aren't they? Do you know what it reminds me of? Freely you have received, freely you give. It reminds me of that song, freely, freely you have received, freely, freely give. Don't know if you know it, but I've got such a strong memory of my own grandma, who would regularly burst into song around the house, whatever she was doing. And this was one of her favourites. And she'd sing that chorus. And it goes on saying, go in my name, and because you believe, others will know that I live. I remembered this as I was thinking about this passage today, and so I looked up the words, and each of the verses in between this chorus, Jesus reminds us that Jesus asks us to share his love, to share his power, and share his peace as he told us to. As lockdown is gradually easing a bit, perhaps now is the time to begin to wonder. I wonder what opportunities for sharing God's love is opening up for us. I wonder how we can share the good news of the kingdom of God is near, that God's love and hope and life is stronger than everything. How can we share God's love and power and peace with one another and with people that haven't discovered it before? For we do know, don't we, that we have freely received so much from God. Might now maybe be the time to explore, even if it seems in a really small or seemingly insignificant way. Might we explore and wonder and look for signs of what we, having been given freely, what we might now give.